Some houses become famous because of what people claim happened inside them. Others become famous because of what can be proven. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue became famous for both, long before stories of strange noises, unexplained voices, cold spots, shadowy figures, and families fleeing into the night. There was another story attached to that address. A story that did not begin with ghosts, but a story that begins with family. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Emerald Raven. And if you couldn't tell from that introduction, the next 2 episodes will be the Amityville Horror. Without further ado, let us jump right into the case. The house sat along the water in Amityville, New York. It was large and distinctive, 3 stories overlooking the canal. The kind of home many families would have been proud to own. In the mid-1970s, it belonged to the DeFeo family. A father, mother, and their children. From the outside, they appeared successful. Friends and neighbors described them as a normal family living in a quiet community. But inside the home, things weren't always peaceful. The oldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., over the years, people would describe him as having a difficult relationship with his father. They would report arguments, tension inside the home, and later there would be allegations involving drug use and violent behavior. As with most famous cases, not every account agrees on every detail. But one thing appears consistently throughout nearly every retelling. The relationship between DeFeo and his family was strained. Years later, DeFeo would give multiple explanations as to what happened inside that house, and those explanations changed often. At different points, he claimed that different people were responsible for what happened. At other times, he suggested that he heard voices urging him towards violence. Some versions of the story contradicted earlier statements. Others introduced entirely new details. Because of those changes, many people question his credibility entirely. But whether people believe him or not, the fact remains that claims involving voices becoming part of the story long after the house gained its reputation as one of America's most famous hauntings. November 13th, 1974. It is very much impossible to talk about Amityville without talking about that date, because shortly after 6 o'clock that evening, DeFeo entered a local bar and told people something was wrong. He claimed his parents had been shot. Several people returned to the house with him. What they discovered would become one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. Members of the DeFeo family were found dead inside their home. The father, the mother, and 4 children had all been shot. All were discovered in their beds. The news spread quickly throughout the community. People struggled to understand how something so violent could have happened inside such a quiet neighborhood. And almost immediately, questions began appearing. Investigators determined a rifle was used. Yet many neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual during the night. No prolonged screaming, no reports of people running from the home. No reports of gunfire. That detail has been discussed for decades. Not because it proves that something paranormal happened, but because it remains one of the many questions people continue to ask about the case. As the investigations continued, attention turned towards Ronald DeFeo Jr. His account of the evening changed multiple times. At one point, he claimed a mob hitman was responsible. That explanation quickly fell apart under investigation. Later, he confessed, but even after the confession, questions remained. Not necessarily about who committed the crime, but about exactly how everything unfolded. Over the years, DeFeo would continue offering different versions of that story. In some interviews, he suggested voices influenced him. In others, he would claim that different family members were involved. Some accounts contradicted their previous statements, and others introduced new detail. The results is a case where many facts are clear, but many of the explanations remain heavily debated. Because those claims involving voices exist, they would eventually become tied to the paranormal reputation that developed into the house sometime later. The murders received national attention. The address became known throughout the country. For many people, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue became synonymous with tragedy. And for a time, it seemed unlikely that anyone would ever want to live there again. But houses don't stay empty forever. Just over a year later, another family purchased the property. The Lutz family. George Lutz was aware of the murders before purchasing the home. The events at the DeFeo house were well known throughout the community, and the history of the property, one of the reasons that the house is available at a price far below what a waterfront home would normally command. There is some disagreement regarding exactly when Kathy Lutz found out. Some accounts suggested she knew before moving in, and others said that she found out sometime afterwards. To this day, there does not appear to be a definitive public statement from Kathy that settles the question. What is clear is that by December of 1975, the Lutz family moved into the home with their children, all of their belongings, and with the understanding that a terrible tragedy had taken place there a year earlier. At the time, the house was known because of murder. The stories that would make it famous around the world had not yet begun. And that's where I will leave part one, because when the Lutz family carried their belongings through the front door, they believed that they were moving into a house with a history. They did not believe that they were moving into one of what would become one of the most famous hauntings in history. With that being said, as always, I'm going to reserve my final thoughts on this case until next week's episode. If you enjoyed this, please like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified of all future content. If you would like to keep up with where I'm going to be and what I'm doing, please go over to Facebook and follow me at Emerald Ravens Hollow. Also, if you have any paranormal encounters yourself, whether that be ghosts or cryptid creatures of any kind, that you would like me to read out on this channel and give my opinion on as I do, please send those to emeraldravenparanormal@gmail.com. All of the details will be down in the description of this episode. With that being said, I will leave you guys here. have a safe weekend as it is the 4th of July. And I will see you guys back here next week. Until then, be safe and remember, never be afraid to spread your wings and soar into the unknown.